So I titled the presentation here, Learning What Matters Now. This is also what we have as a slogan on the ARK, and scaling place-based education with the Green Steps ARK, because this is what we really currently work on. ARK is short for Activate Body and Mind, Restore the Environment, including people, and Know Your Bioregion. I put here a graph that I found very inspiring. It was published in 2019 as an article by an American and a Dutch scientist, and they were looking into 300 initiatives that engage in restoration and regeneration of the planet. And they found that there are 4 quarters or 4 areas where they are active. So those that are really regenerative on the right side, and those who are extractive on the left side. And what you see here is an imminent conflict between a global world and the need to act locally. So we have Gaia initiatives in the top right corner, and so-called Gaia SLOC, local commons initiatives, in the right lower corner. Let's not talk about the for-profit initiatives on the left side. And so we tried to place the ARK somewhere in between, because we need to resolve this conflict. We need to act locally, but still we need to be connected in this single ecosystem, our planet. So we have a white paper online. And the white paper defines a project mission, which is triple health. So it's health in the economic sphere, it's health in the environmental sphere, and it's health in regard to communities. And we then split the project development into 3 phases. So phase number 1 is to overcome the fragmentation of informal education. Phase number 2 was about scaling the overview effect, so the environmental part. This is where we are right now. And phase number 3 is at least thinking about what can we also do to include the economy, because to be honest and frank, we will not change a lot if there is not also an economic incentive for people to act properly. And so therefore, we said, okay, we need to at least think how we could structure a conditional basic income. Yeah, right now we are in this phase 2. We try to scale the so-called overview effect. Quick question, is this a term that is familiar to all of you? Are you familiar with this?
What?
Overview effect?
No.
The overview effect has been experienced by astronauts, especially when they are in the outer atmosphere and they give up their national identity. They have a cognitive shift, a real transformative experience, because they see the fragility of the planet. And a guiding question for us was, if we cannot shoot 8 billion people into space, what can we do to induce this cognitive shift? So for phase 1, just deliverables, we developed an event platform and a best practice library. The idea here is to overcome the fragmentation of many, many different offers of really good local practices. So we try to match the learner with organizations and individual educators. And we have come up with a couple of learning paths. I don't know if you find yourself in there. This is a dynamic idea. So, I mean, they might change, new will come maybe. Some might disappear, but all the activities that are hosted on the ARK can be tagged with those learning paths, and so it is also with the best practice library. Now, we structured this also across the 17 SDGs, and the idea is to visualize lifelong informal learning beyond organizational and national limitations. And we also think that there's a much underestimated learning instinct. We are even being educated out of this learning instinct in our formal schooling, but actually people really want to
Lebensmittel,
wanna learn.
Gesundheit.
Marie-Antoinette, möchtet ihr nicht das Mikro ausschalten, dann hören wir. Danke.
Yeah, so you might ask yourself, what is the difference between the ARK and Green Steps? So Green Steps is really our local kind of nature guide team on the ground where we do really local, super local work. And the ARK is a global commons project that tries to connect local initiatives like Green Steps with others. And with Green Steps, we have developed 3 flagship formats. They are all hosted on the ARK as best practices in the library. As well as activities that we constantly activate and implement with the local community. So one project is called Big Friendly Giants. It's about the understanding of ecosystem services provided by old trees. We map those trees and we turn them into interactive walking routes. We focus quite a bit today on this. So what have we done till now is we have mapped more than 400 trees in the city where we are. And we have submitted in December 22, 265 trees with more than 3 meters of circumference to the local government. And in the last few weeks, actually 3 trees have been declared as a nature monument. So this is an extreme success for us, which already proves that our work with the ARK is successful because there was complete inactivity for 20 years. Nothing happened. There was a decreasing number of nature monuments, and there is a huge violation of nature happening here. I was yesterday again in a walk, and large areas of forests are being cleared. Not only in the Amazon, this also happens in Austria. Then Groovy Garden is the second project that we engage in. It's basically the idea of having to transform culture in schools, a vegetable patch or a vegetable bed for every class. It's a practical introduction to food independence and subsistence gardening. We do this project since May 23 in a public primary school, and we start this month actually with the local University for Applied Sciences. They have a social green care program for master students, and we collaborate with them. And the third activity that is also quite central is about restoring neighborhoods and commons. It's called Plastic Pirates. We collect trash, and we have tried to gamify this activity. It's super important because there is a lot of trash just lying around and it needs to be cleared manually. Well, and this activity too is hosted on the ARK as a kind of a side feature. Yeah, so actually, before I continue here, Lucas, would you like to jump into the platform and show the activity platform, the best practice library, and the main navigation menu? Then it's a bit more practical.
Absolutely. So I guess you should be seeing my screen right now. And let's have a look at how the things that Knut just spoke about look in practice. What I have opened in here is my personal ARK profile. So you see it's a website, but it also works very well on the phone. And we also have an Android app. It lives on ark.greensteps.me. What I have opened in here right now is like the smallest unit, which is me. This is my personal cockpit in which I can see what I have been up to and what I have done already so far. So there are the gamification elements that we are trying to work with, which are the impact points that show my total amount of time in restoring the planet. I can see how much I have already learned about the nature around me, about my local bioregion. And as Knut said about the trash cleanups, we also have gamified this, and you can see how much trash we have already removed. I see my certifications and badges. I see my interests. I see my learning space. Then the second unit that we have are communities. which are spaces for individual communities to present themselves, organize their activities, post, communicate with their learners. So I'm just quickly opening here one, which is our community of Green Steps in St. Pölten. Yeah, then the third unit that we have that is a little bit bigger than communities are commons, which are then the places on the planet that we are taking stewardship of. So one commons can be taken care of by multiple communities and individuals. And the focus in here is on learning about the nature around us. Mostly what we do right now is focusing on specimens of trees. So this will be talked about later in the call. And then the activities, which was the second part of the project that we spoke about earlier. So this is activities that happen in the real world offline, organized by the communities on the platform, and people can join them. It's an event platform. They can buy a ticket and they get the impact points or certifications, badges for participating in those activities. Then the next is the library, which is the library of best practices. It works as a place to share knowledge and experience between different communities and individuals. The way that it is implemented currently is a kind of template for activities on the platform with pedagogical information inside. So basically information about how to achieve learning outcome. And last but not least, we've got the leaderboard, which is gamifying it for people who is on the top, who has gotten the most impact points, both for individuals and for communities. And you can also switch it to see the kilograms of trash that have been collected, not only the impact points. Yeah. So yeah, that's the platform in the nutshell, and we will talk about some of the parts in detail a little bit later. Okay, like this, Knut?
Yeah, great.
All right.
Is it okay for everybody if we continue?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Then I hope that I'm again here. Yeah. So we focus now on phase 2. So scaling the overview effect. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
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 So the main application of phase 2 is education. So we try to seamlessly extend school premises, not only school premises, but our focus is really schools, because we believe that there are so many children locked up indoors, that there is so much energy, potential energy for transformation that needs to be activated. And I'm a teacher myself now. I'm teaching in a public secondary school, and it's just horrific. I mean, there's mood disorders, depression, there's an epidemic of inactivity. Children are passive, they are overweight, teachers are exhausted. And so there are a lot of obstacles which are in national curricula and other causes. But we need to have a solution to get especially the kids, the young, the youth outdoors and contribute in a positive, regenerative way to the transformation. So this is the main application here. But there is also, there are two more potential applications. One is in regard to governance. So the ARK works as basically a seamless tree inventory. If you look at tree inventories throughout the world, they are hosted on for-profit softwares ArcGIS is the most common one. I think they have like a 40% global market share. It's an American company, and you basically have tree inventories that are restricted to the public areas of cities. So you have not included private gardens. You have not included a lot of differently managed areas, and basically you have the limitation of the city. The ARK changes this because you can integrate different tree inventories and have a seamless nature protection. And the third application that is at least potentially possible is that through the gamification that we have implemented, that you create meaningful, sustainable tourism experiences by connecting with nature and people. So the USPs in phase 2 are creating and managing an outdoor learning space, building ecological intelligence and systems awareness, and communicating and restoring green capital in our environment. So the problem space, I have already pointed at it a little bit. Why does our organization exist? I have this quote by Sir Ken Robinson: there is not only a crisis in natural resources, but one in human resources, and the two are connected. And I'm teaching in the public school only since half a year. I can't tell you how true this is. So it's really severe, and this is in a very developed country. If we look at how we deal with the land, and that's probably closer to a lot of you, we can manage our land badly, then we have destruction, and we can manage it well. And then we have restoration. We probably have a Garden of Eden that surrounds us. But in order to achieve this, and this is probably also what Philippe meant with the ecological civilization, we need to have proper training. And this training needs to happen also in formal education. And our curricula are not training exactly this. They do the opposite. So Lucas mentioned stewardship over commons is super important. When we take care of the land takes care of us. The result of this is that we have actually two kinds of ecosystem services, and this is rarely being spoken about. At least I haven't heard it. So there is the ecosystem services that are provided by nature elements like trees. There's a lot of science being executed in regard to this. We calculated with scientific formulas, and we have tried to implement this on the ARK. It's quite nice. But there is a second form of ecosystem services, which is more in the social realm. Our human actions lead either to destruction or to ecosystem restoration. And this is basically what we track on the ARK in a gamified way, just in terms of time, because you can spend your time in destroying others and the environment or be regenerative. So we quickly go through how do we calculate the tree ecosystem services? How can we communicate the value of green capital? Trees are keystone species, and that's again a pedagogical approach. I mean, a butterfly, a herb, different parts of nature have an intrinsic value. But if you're not a biologist, it's very difficult to get a starting point. And trees, especially large trees, are semi-permanent. They are, what I always say, a little bit like a Colosseum. If you have a tree that is 300 years old or 200 years old, it has been in your neighborhood or maybe even in your garden since generations. It is so-called semi-permanent. So we focus on these blue whales of the plant kingdom, and by focusing on them, we make a human scale access point to other species. It's really the starting point to understand nature. Sorry, I'm having here a flaw in my slide, but we try to create systems understanding through the age-appropriate exploration of space. We start with the large trees, we map them, we cluster them into routes, we create those routes within a commons. And the commons is obviously always located in an ecoregion, and the science of ecoregions, of biogeography, has defined 844 ecoregions that make up our planet. So that's the organizational structure behind the ARK that Lucas has built. What does the ARK do? It basically is a data hub to build the Internet of Nature and to connect people with nature. So in the center, you have people playing on the ARK, mapping nature on the ARK, and you have tree specimens. The species information, not only of trees, we pull in by Wikipedia. This is what you see here on the left side. The structure of eco and bioregions we get from another NGO, One Earth. And on the right side, you see the ecosystem formulas for trees. We get through iTree and the Center for Urban Climate Adaptation at the TU Munich. And on top of this, we get nature monument data from public databases like the Data GVAT server, where you have basically the nature monuments of all of Austria listed. And this is combined in the ARK and visualized in an appealing way. You might ask, how do you map a tree? This would be the practical workshop that Gloria might be doing in the end of March. So we have created these 10 workshops. So you first create a community map. How does the area where you live look like? What nature elements are there? And we have different workshops that lead up to mapping the tree, mapping the cultural connection of nature in this area, creating a route, maybe also creating route stories. The integration with culture is super important, decorating the route. And the last part is that the ARK creates so-called collectible Big Friendly Giants cards. And these cards can be printed through the ARK, and they look a bit like this. So you see in which here on right top, you see the ecoregion. Then you see the city, coat of arms, how old is the tree, how big. And on the bottom, you have 5 symbols that communicate the ecosystem services provided. And whoever maps a tree has, of course, also the right to name the tree. So we call this tree Ronja. You might know the story from Astrid Lindgren. It's a beautiful tree in the center of the city. And we have created there a route that focuses mainly on children. So I'm not going to go here into details, but I would ask Lucas now again to show you in the ARK how such a card is created.
Sure. So let me start again the sharing. And... All right. So I'm going to show you how to create a collectible card, which is a way that we try to make the system not only online in terms of the gamification, but also to have something to touch. So it starts on the page of the Commons, which is the area that we are taking stewardship of. And inside of the Commons, we map the local trees in the specimens tab. So basically, these are all the trees that you map locally and make available to be gamified through the quests that people then walk. So this is basically a collaborative space to map the local natural environment. We are trying to make the collection work in here as well. So I've got the ones that I have discovered, but I also have the ones that are still locked that I have not visited here. I can see it on the list view, but I can also see it on a map view. So in here, you can see the commons of St. Pölten with all the trees that we have mapped in here. And so all of those trees then have their own page where you can see some information about them, so the ecosystem services, but also information about the natural part of them and the cultural part, if they have it. Good. And the tab species, probably it's understandable by itself. These are all the species that have been encountered in here. These are both trees, but also other types of animals, other things that you can encounter in the outdoors. And now we get to the tab of quests, which are then the routes that people can walk with their mobile phone and discover those trees, answer a short quiz, and then collect the either digital or physical card of that tree. So these are all the quests that we have now currently in Sampulten. The ones that I have walked already, they have some number of how many trees I have discovered in there. The ones that I haven't been to have a look. And let's have a look how to create the card. I'm going to go to one specific quest, which is close to our office. So that's the walk Glanstoff of one abandoned factory that is close to our office. If I am going to play, I'm going to go with the button in here, continue. But as the admin, I'm going to the dashboard of this quest. And in the tools tab, I have all the specimens that are in this walk. And I can either get a QR code that I'm hanging then on the tree to discover it. I can edit, and I can create the collectible card. So this is basically the card that I asked in the local print shop to print it. I can download it in here. We make kind of like Pokemon or Dungeons and Dragons style of cards. And you can see that there are quite a few information on the card. You can see the name, the species. You can see where it is. So that's the ecoregion and the commons, the age, the diameter at the breast height, and the height of the tree. But then also the ecosystem services, which are like the superheroes powers of those trees. So you can see the amount of CO2 captured in 1 year. You can see the cooling power. This is the biodiversity index, the amount of water that it can capture in 1 year, and the amount of air that it can filter in 1 year. So in here it's just very simplified. If you open the card in your ARK profile, there is explanation about all those ecosystem services and what those numbers mean. So basically bridging the scientific information, trying to make it a little bit playful while also explaining what it means. Okay, I will hand back to Knut.
Yeah, I think we have lost Philippe. Is this correct?
Yes, Philip unfortunately had an emergency with his son. He had to leave. And I will provide to all of you the contacts and the recording, and I will watch it through with him together again and follow up with you regarding environmental humanities.
Yeah.
But I suggest we just go on.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would still like to leave a little bit of time for discussion. You might have gotten the impression that this is now very tech and online heavy, but actually it is not. We only designed the app to map the trees and to have some learning progress record. But most of our activities are really kind of online. We try to make offline as much as possible. We have a little booklet where we explain the trees. We have these offline maps that are at the start of all the routes that tell people where to go. And also these BFG collectible cards are actually an incentive for the younger children aged 9 to 12, I would say, to collect instead of footballers or soccer players, something really useful in their environment. And so we really try to make trees the heroes they truly are. Now, this leads us to the next topic. It's easy, sort of scientifically, to describe ecosystem services of trees. And we have managed this on the ARK. It's kind of done. But motivating people to provide ecosystem services and to restore the environment and also neighborhoods and communities, that's a different thing. That's really complicated. So I continue here a little bit more, and then I think we try to have a bit of a chat. I would be very interested to hear what you say. Does it come? Not yet. I try again.
It's black screen.
So now here it is.
Yeah, it's here.
Here it
Yeah.
is.
So motivating human ecosystem services. So how do we get kids, youth outdoors to restore the planet? So our answer in phase 2 is gamification. But gamification in a very positive, motivating way, because gamification in short just means to do meaningful things with fun and perseverance. So for the BFG game, how does this work? People can get BFG Guardian badges, and it's really like a run and jump game. If you have played, like myself, run and jump games in the 80s on the computer, you know that you go through different levels and you collect points, and you have challenges to overcome. So that's how it works. And we basically play run and jump games in the real world. And the participants can become a big friendly giant guardian. So it starts as level 1 with 10 observations, basically when you do the first quest. But then it continues level 3 that you need 100 observations and 10 mappings. What is the result of this gamification is that the participants really get to know the local ecosystem very much in detail, so because they are exposed to questions about surface sealing, about the insects that are on the trees, the birds. It's much more than just the tree. The tree is just the habitat, the space where nature exploration happens. And the far end of this phase 2 is that we develop so-called bioregional identities. What is a bioregional identity? We live now in a world where we have national identities. We consider ourselves Austrians, Swiss, Thai, Chinese, and nationalism is actually spreading quite substantially. But what we need is to move beyond. We need to have a post-national structure because we live on one human hive and we only have one planet that we need to take care of. So how do we try to do this in the ARK? You can do any activity, not just what we have as green steps with big friendly giants, for example. You just take an activity, you add species, you add certain specimens, and you create a sort of a route. And there are people in a commons and in an ecoregion who define what needs to be learned to develop your bioregional identity. And these are the roles. I think that's the final slide that I would like to show you. These are the roles that you have on the ARK. So you are a learner. And when you're a learner, you can participate in activities. You can play the BFG game, for example. You can map trees. You can also create routes and quests. When you're a facilitator, you can create events. You award impact points. You can moderate a class. You create and activate best practices from the library, where we have already more than 100. And of course, you can do everything that the learner can do. When you are a community mentor, you moderate a learning community. You set bioregional learning goals. When you are a commons mentor, you move more on the biology and ecology side of the ARK. You moderate a local territory and you curate specimens. So if somebody submits a new tree, you review it and you make sure that the quality is okay. And the ecoregion mentor moderates an entire ecoregion. I told you that there are 844, and you curate the species within that ecoregion. So if somebody submits a new species, you make sure that this is correct. So this setup maintains with those 5 roles that there is a good quality in the content that is crowdsourced by the people using the ARK. Right. We almost have an hour, so I would like to stop here. I think there will be time to talk more than some other day.